actually need to move my camera up. All right, so let's check out this. I did watch a video of hers not long after Resident Evil Requiem came out. So this is another one that she came up with. So this is talking about basically Western looks and Eastern looks when it comes to video games.
The very first video I ever posted on this channel was called The Problem with Women in Games and Why It's Killing Hype. Over the last year, we have come back to this topic several times and I have expanded on my thoughts, but you know, a very small optimistic part of me was kind of hoping that by now it would begin to fade into obscurity, become a distant memory. Well, if last week has shown us anything, unfortunately, that is not the case. But before we get into all of that, there actually was a ton that happened this past week. We saw lots of updates, news, reveals, and there is so much that I am excited about. First being Jeff Keighley's High Guard Redemption arc, which even though the feed was stutter maxing almost the entire live stream, he got off to a great start by completely mogging both the State of Play and Xbox Showcase. Summer Game Fest opened up on Resident Evil Veronica, which is very exciting. I cannot wait for this remake. You guys probably know if I had to pick a AAA dev that I think is really crushing it right now, it would be Capcom. They have been on such a roll lately. We saw the reveal for Final Fantasy VII Revelation, the third and final part of the remake trilogy, and learned that the lovely Tifa is joining Street Fighter. Monster Hunter Wilds is getting its big expansion. Pow World is finally hitting 1.0 on July 10th, and I just know Nintendo was coping hard watching Jeff in the audience hype it up so much. The Blood of Dawnwalker, the vampire RPG from the X-Witcher crew, is coming this September, along with any other game that has apparently ever been made, but it looks great. On Amusha, Way of the Sword showed up at State of Play. I played through the demo and I enjoyed it, although Capcom, I do have to ask, what are we doing with that chatty inanimate gauntlet? Making me a little nervous. A very quick aside here, this actually reminds me of one of my minor complaints about Pragmata. Even though I loved the game, you and Diana did not give you a moment of silence. Stellar Blade Blood Rain was announced, and I am very excited for this, and of course we will be coming back to Eevee in just a bit. Mortal Shell 2 beta is out. I'm playing through that now. It's pretty impressive so far. Alien Isolation 2 is finally happening 12 years later, and it looks incredible. Will IGN give this game another 6? I don't know. Only time will tell. We got another look at Beast of Reincarnation from Game Freak. Yes, the Pokemon studio. You'll play as Emma, so I'm very excited to adventure as her and her wolf companion named Ku this August. Xbox did a whole deep dive on Gears of War E-Day, which is an Xbox exclusive, but it is still coming to PC. We got a brand new Spyro in the works. There is the remake of Halo 1 coming, and Persona 6 was officially announced, along with the reveal of Persona 4 Revival. We saw more of Fable, which I didn't even realize was Fable for like the first half of the trailer, but the more I see of this game, the less excited I am for it.
Interesting.
I'm so sorry. In my opinion, it is just feeling more and more like a generic Western fantasy slop. To be fair though, I do think what we saw of Hayley Atwell's performance as Isabelle was really good, and while I personally feel like she actually looks a bit closer to her normal self and better than literally any other character that we saw in that whole trailer, Western devs just cannot help themselves.
Nope.
It is actually crazy to see how they keep failing these beautiful Hollywood actresses, which, speaking of, it is not anything new and definitely not new to the Fable franchise, but AAA continually hiring these big Hollywood actors for these massive projects cannot be cheap in an industry that is actively struggling and raising costs on everything.
Yep.
I legitimately cannot believe Jack Quaid was actually used to mocap or block for the Cube in God of War. Why didn't they just have someone else stand in for that? Why does that character exist in the first place? I don't know, but like I said at the start, this week has been a lot. But the one announcement that we just have to talk about right off the bat is, of course, State of Play's big reveal, God of War Laufey. The new mainline God of War game confirmed by Sony themselves that does not feature the God of War. And I knew as soon as this game was revealed, any feedback or criticism surrounding the creative decisions, the sidelining of Kratos in his own franchise was immediately going to be overtaken by the gamers hate women crowd. And it has been very interesting to see how it has evolved from you're sexist, you're just a gooner chud, to, you know what, if you'd rather play as Kratos in your God of War game, you're actually just gay. The discourse is basically a hydra at this point. Each time you chop off one gamers hate female characters accusation, 3 more grow back to take its place. And this gets us back around to the very start of this video, this ongoing pattern of female characters in games and how they are continuing to be misrepresented and treated in the West, most notably by AAA, and I'm tired, boss. First off, Sony was out here hyping up this state of play like crazy. We had a very early countdown, lots of industry buzz about it. They even brought it back to select movie theaters for the very first time since 2018. Even I was getting super curious about what was about to be revealed, but after they opened with Wolverine, my brain went 2 directions. The first being, no way. Are they actually the ones to get to show off more GTA 6? And the other being, oh, we're about to get more intergalactic, aren't we? Imagine my surprise.
They haven't talked much about the intergalactic since it was revealed during the Game Awards last year. 2025, I think is what it was. Is when they talked about when they brought this up. They have not talked about it since. So it is interesting.
Did with God of War laundry. After the 20-minute reveal, within a few minutes, my whole feed was talking about it. Hot takes, memes, defenses of the defenses, people splitting into different camps, fans saying it is not a God of War game without Kratos. Why would we want to play as his 45-year-old dead wife? Other fans who are excited about it, and some people who just really hate the cube. However you dice it though, the backlash was real and pretty significant, and the fast reaction from Santa Monica on everything was pretty telling. Pretty quickly after it all started, they went into full PR mode, basically this reassurance of, don't worry, Kratos is still the God of War. We promise we have so many more stories to tell with him. Please just come along for the ride with Faye. Although, given production timelines and the fact that Sony themselves called this a mainline entry, I know we've got the remakes coming, but probably we will not see a brand new Kratos game for, I don't know, 6 years or more. So that promise from them is doing a lot of work. But my favorite part of this whole thing was when Domino's UK tweeted out that a God of War game with no Kratos is like a pepperoni passion pizza with no pepperoni. Some random intern being more in line with the audience than actual Santa Monica themselves. And instead of just ignoring it, Santa Monica fired back with, okay, thanks for the feedback, Domino's Pizza corporate account. And yes, I guess that is the best that they could do. Shortly after came the headlines defending them getting rage baited by a pizza company, and I don't see how any of this is how a confident studio behaves. You don't reassure people that hard and fast. You don't get baited by a pizza chain over a creative decision that is supposedly working very well, publicly saying that you're disappointed and hoping people will give the game a chance. You shouldn't have to put on a brave face just because of the latest entry in your decades-long established franchise. A studio that trusts its premise and its audience just shows you the game and lets it speak for itself. And funnily enough, in the same week, we got to watch a studio do exactly that. Over at Summer Game Fest, Shift Up announced Stellar Blade Blood Rain with a brand new lead named Evie. I think the gameplay and graphics look really incredible. I am very excited. It is looking a bit different from the first game. The combat has shifted from the blade over to gauntlet and melee.
Which I think is pretty cool. I think that's an interesting dynamic to look at in that regards. Being more of a brawler compared to what it was in the first game, from what I've seen, where first game, like she just, like background NPC just mentioned, you're using a blade for a lot of your combat. This one, it looks like you're going to be more, like I mentioned, more of like a brawler using your fist. Not saying that there won't be other weapons you could use, but generally it looks like you're going to be like a brawler type character.
Music still sounds fantastic though, and it is self-published now, not by Sony. And even though I was really sad to see that Eve is no longer the main character, the studio said that Evie is connected to Eve and that the goal is not to outdo her, but to make a character that players can connect with even more. They also mentioned that while looks are important, they are not everything, and they are heavily focusing on Evie's personality and improving the writing, which I think is great. So now we have got 2 studios both handing you a new female lead, and this is where the whole you just hate female characters thing finally shows its hand once again, because nobody is actually against female leads. We have had 30 plus years of beloved ones, plenty of which are my favorite characters, and the lineup that people are hyped for right now is stacked with them. The demand has never been no female leads. The demand is accept our female leads, but then when someone goes and creates one that doesn't quite fit into that narrative, it is, oh no, not that one. Faye is just the latest example of the whole Western AAA female character problem. Played by Deborah Ann Woll, an actual stunning woman. Nobody is disagreeing with that. Even the people defending her design agree. They are sharing her real life photos going, you don't like this? See?
Yeah, oh yeah, that always aggravates me because it's like, they're just rage baiting. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, I mean, like, if you look at the images, like, you telling me you couldn't craft her actual face in, like, what are we doing?
Yes, she is. That is kind of the whole point. Even her current day photos, if you want to be super fair, when you put them next to the in-game model, there is a noticeable gap, and that gap is not on accident. Despite what we have been told, it is not a tech limit, it is not just the lighting. You can see it the second you put the two side by side. It's the same issue we've talked about on this channel 100 times already. The one that only ever happens in the West. Fable, Star Wars Outlaws, Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2, the new Jean Grey and Wolverine. Actually, most characters in that game in Spider-Man 2.
I saw somebody on Twitter talk about this one because they were complaining about how they were saying gamers hated her. Talking about like the way she looked, like the way she did in Marvel Spider-Man 2 was because the model got in a car wreck and had some injury done to her jaw, which is why she looked the way she did. Or maybe hold on, maybe it was the voice actor. I think it was the voice actor who got injured in a car accident, and then the model. But maybe everybody was talking about the model. Let me make sure real quick before. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Oops, I bet I pressed the wrong thing. Let's see. Let's see what we got. I gotta find my buttons. Let me see. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so she had a face model and she had a voice motion capture actress. So I believe let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. So, okay. So basically, the developer response, Insomniac Games confirmed that they did not change the face model for Mary Jane. The character's change appearance in the sequel is simply due to Insomniac's upgraded next-gen facial scanning technology, combined with the fact that MJ has a new haircut and less formal styling. They made her uglier. That's what they're saying. So, yeah.
The new Jean Grey and Wolverine. Actually, most characters in that game. A beautiful actress or just a strong original design gets run through whatever the opposite of a beauty filter is, and we get handed the result, while everyone else insists it looks no different, or it looks fine, or it is just the technology. And to be clear, she's not hot enough is not my whole argument here. I am not saying every female character needs to look like a supermodel, but when it is this clearly intentional that she has been altered, that decision tells me you are either embarrassed or threatened, or you've got some other agenda, and you're indirectly saying that you do not think this character can be equally compelling and beautiful at the same time. Like, those two things cannot possibly live in the same person. This is nothing new. Caring how a character looks is not some gross gamer thing. Everybody does this. Movie fans, show fans, romantasy readers will go to war over the casting of their book boyfriend. The whole reason I initially got into Baldur's Gate 3 was because of countless girls posting videos of the pretty makeup and clothes that they were styling their tabs with. Pretending looks don't matter, or that it is somehow only a thing guys care about, is just dishonest, and it kills the conversation before it can even start. And with Faye, there has even been a clear change from her design in the previous games. Well, she's supposed to look realistic, or she's dead. It's a fantasy game. There's mythological beings all around. One of your companions is a quippy jelly cube. They have just put her in this safe, generic fantasy look that is completely forgettable next to Kratos, and it's not only her, it is the whole creative direction between the quippy, inanimate companions, lack of Kratos, lack of Norse-specific mythology. Just this morning, I saw a tweet from Santa Monica sharing more info about the enchanted pink set of talking ribbons named Rue that will accompany Faye on her journey, which is exactly the tweet that I would come back to for inspo if I were creating my next Barbie fantasy game. Legitimately, if I did not know Faye was an existing character, I would not know that this was supposed to be a God of War game, which even if you take the title off of the cover art, it still doesn't look like a God of War game. But again, if that is not your cup of tea, it is still a female lead, so you just need to accept it, or you might just hate women. Now, flip over to Evie. A studio hands you a new female lead, and despite some people missing Eve, including me, the overwhelmingly majority of the audience who likes this game was immediately excited. And for the record, I do think Evie is super cute. It is clear that they were going for an Alita type aesthetic, and as a 5'2" NPC myself, I am excited that we are finally getting a short queen in the lead role. But the same crowd that was just demanding you accept Faye as your new female lead once again goes, no, not that one. It is just a Gooner game. And then the real controversy, a whole wave of people calling Evie a literal child, and worse. Now, I have seen attacks coming from all sides. The internet is up in arms. Journalists have already been writing articles about it. And while I do think at this point the discourse has gotten a bit out of hand, to try and be as fair as possible, I will admit that the very first shot I saw of her face, I thought she looked a little bit younger, but looking younger and a child are two completely different things. A 20-year-old is going to look younger than a 30-year-old or even a 25-year-old. The creator also stated that they wanted Evie to be shorter and a little younger than Eve, which does look to be the case. And even if you want to cherry pick that one shot of her, after watching the rest of the trailer, it is completely obvious she is an adult East Asian woman. Her full character model has even leaked at this point, further proving that. We actually even got our first Evie cosplay, and she looks great. It is just so strange to me because petite features on an adult woman do not make her a child or childlike. A younger looking face on an adult woman does not make her a child or childlike.
I mean, not only that, if you look at Asian countries in general, they tend to look extremely young, even when they're like maybe 30 or 40. And then once they get like to a certain age, it drastically changes. Like their physical features and everything. It is really, really crazy. Like I've seen some Asian people talk about this as well, on different like videos and Twitter and everything, just talking about that. That's the case. I think even Leaflet mentioned it as well. So yeah, I don't have a problem with the character model. That's just me though.
Of any K-pop group or K-drama, and you'll see this constantly. This is Lisa in her early 20s, one of the biggest pop stars on the planet. Same for so many Korean stars in their early 20s, and weirdly, we never saw this discourse over someone like Lily in the first game or Rebecca Chambers in Resident Evil, both petite young adult women. But the part that does kind of give all of this away, though, is that many of these same people tried this exact type of thing with the first Steller blade. They came after Eve as hard as they possibly could. Male gaze, offensive, unrealistic. I've even seen receipts now of the time when people claimed Eve herself had a childlike face. The whole thing did not land. The game was a hit. Fans loved it. Of course, in the second game, fresh off of all of the Laufey discourse, with everybody already worked up about women in games, they were always going to come and swing even harder. And this time, the swing has shifted to the worst thing that they could think of. She's literally a child. But like I said, it is not just Evie. Eve was also problematic. To be was unrealistic. There was a time Bayonetta was not accepted. The new Lara Croft needed dragging for wearing makeup. A fully clothed, high-collar character like Amelie from Knight's Path was just called unrealistic and tradwife born. And that unrealistic claim gets me every single time, because where was this realism crowd for something like Baldur's Gate 3? A game that I love, game of the year, but also a game where, if you wanted to, you could take Shadowheart, Bazel, and Karlach into battle completely booty naked with no mods required. Why didn't they show up for 1348 Ex Voto with a female lead in a full practical suit of medieval armor? Because it was never about realism. It is about which women in which games are allowed to be attractive, and underneath that, it has never really been.
And keep in mind, this is like women also. They don't like competition, and that is a fact when it comes to women in general. If you are a woman who is an 8. You are going to be drastically jealous of a woman who's a 9 or a 10. I mean, it's the same thing you could probably say for a guy as well, in some senses, but yeah, like, I feel like it's more women that get jealous of looks than it is anything else.
About female leads at all. It has always been, no, not that one. The second a female character threatens the narrative or the developers, she is shoved out the door, insults flying, a pawn that gets moved off the board the moment that she's inconvenient. But finally, moving away from character design, we do have to address the other elephant with God of War, the repeat pattern of male-led franchises being handed to female leads.
This is true.
Now, I don't know. God of War Laufey could...
This isn't just that too. I wonder if I saw a thing on Twitter as well. It was like showing all these characters. Like you have Kratos, now it goes to Laufey. Joel goes to Ellie. And we've kind of seen that in Marvel as well over the past couple of years, where some of these iconic heroes, their roles were being handed down to different characters.
End up being a great game that fans unite together on and end up loving. I don't know the future, but even if that does happen, it is obvious that Santa Monica is making a lot of creative decisions with this game that at the very least are sparking a lot of backlash from their fan base. From the quippy blue cube, sparkly talking ribbons, and quirky millennial dialogue to playing as Faye herself, at the heart of it, you've still got a beloved male-led franchise that is doing great and has been around for the last 20 years. The studio then decides it wants to tell a woman's story, which is completely fine, but instead of building her a brand new world, they hand her an existing one and move the original lead into the passenger seat or the trunk. And I think that if this was just a one-off thing, not a consistent pattern, people might not be so vocal about it. I don't know, it's hard to say because the tone is pretty different too with this one, but Sony Studios just can't stop doing this. Naughty Dog killed Joel and handed you Ellie, and
see, this is what I was talking about. So I mean, you got Kratos to Laufey, Geralt to Ciri, Joel to Ellie. I forgot these characters' names but the first Ghost of Tsushima to Ghost of Yote. And I believe this is Uncharted for the last one.
and made you play as Abby for half of the game. Uncharted spun off without Nathan Drake at all, just Chloe and Nadine. Ghost of Tsushima does huge numbers, and the follow-up, Yote, is not Jin's story anymore, it is Atsu's. And not Sony, but same thing with Geralt finishing his story in Witcher 3, and now Witcher 4 belongs to Ciri. Now, to be clear, I love Chloe, I love Ellie, I love Ciri, and I don't think playing as them is a bad thing, but it is about what they keep being used to do and any type of discourse that follows. Replacing or sidelining a beloved protagonist, any protagonist, a man or a woman, will inevitably get pushback. That is very normal. We just talked about it with Evie replacing Eve, and it even happened with something as beloved as Red Dead 2. But the second it's a woman stepping into a man's role, the conversation just ends, because suddenly you're not allowed to ask whether it was a good creative call, whether it still appeals to the target audience, whether it's something that fans can rally behind, because now you hate women. And this is not specific to gaming. The same move has played out across Marvel, across Star Wars, the whole the Force is female thing. Sold as being more inclusive, but it tends to land as taking something that people, mostly men, love, deciding it's problematic, and then fixing it for the modern audience. And that tells me it is not actually about telling women's stories at all. I think if that were the case, we would probably see a lot more brand new stories and characters standing on their own. It is more about coming down on masculinity and breaking existing toys, because it really only ever runs in one direction. When is the last time you saw anyone?
And I've said this before too. You know, like Star Wars, for a good example. Predominantly male. That does not mean there aren't females within the Star Wars community. That doesn't mean they're not allowed to be there. That's not what I'm talking about. But to come in a male-dominated space, the gaming is also like this as well. You'll see like female gamers talk about like how, you know, be nice to me because I'm a female and all. You know, they come in and try to change the male space to suit them instead of them adjusting themselves to that space. And she's right. It only goes one direction. It's always taking from the males and giving it to females. What, like, Barbie is a female brand. How would a lot of females feel all of a sudden Barbie started becoming more male-centric? They started making more male, you know, Barbie-related content for males, completely excluding all of the females that like Barbie and things like that. Well, guess what? They'll get mad about it and they'll complain about it. It's the same situation that we're having right here. You have people who were not originally part of the fandom. There are some people, I've seen some females in across multiple fandoms even call this out. And just like you, again, the tourists, they come in, they try to take over something they had no hand in building, trying to make it their own. It just keeps happening, and it only goes one way, and that's taking from the males, which is just really ridiculous.
Ever take an established and very well-known female lead and swap her out for a man. The next Horizon game is not going to be led by Aaron. Lara Croft's next adventure is not going to sideline her for Winston the Butler. The Alien franchise is not going to cast a man as the lead role for their next movie. Which, again, like I said, is kind of where the Stellar Blade sequel shows us another angle.
That's actually pretty interesting. If you look back at all the Alien movies, the main protagonist has been a female. Like the original 4 Aliens, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. Obviously, you have Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. You have then Prometheus and Alien Covenant. The main protagonist is a female lead. Alien Romulus is a female lead. Even Alien Earth is a female lead. I have not noticed that, or I haven't really paid that much attention to that. That's interesting.
Seemingly benched Eve for a brand new lead. And while I am going to really miss her, this is completely different from the God of War situation. Evie still fits the world extremely well and is someone that the existing audience would want to play as. Despite their differences, you cannot tell me that she does not fit the existing Stellar Blade expectations. I mean, come on, they are clearly still building this game for their target audience, and they even split from Sony to do it on their own terms. And that's the part that kind of made this whole week a little funny to me. After all of the discourse started with God of War, I knew that if I was just a little patient, this argument would settle itself in record time. Enter Summer Game Fest and all of the other titles featured across Xbox and PlayStation, where it fell apart pretty quickly, and we saw such a celebration for women in games across the board. Resident Evil Veronica, Final Fantasy VII Revelation, and Street Fighter VI, 1666 Amsterdam, Gundam Rogue Orbit, Alien Isolation 2, Ace Combat 8, Castlevania, Belmont's Curse, Beast of Reincarnation. I'm sure there's more that I missed, but plenty of games with upcoming female leads or prominent female characters that fans are super excited for. I don't think anyone is mad that Faye exists, and I'm sure a lot of people probably like her as a character, but even if you think the game will be good, taking a beloved male protagonist and his own series and giving him the same treatment that we continue to see happen, while also totally changing the game, and then not understanding how there could be pushback, is why we will continue to see this discourse happen. Players are tired of pointing at something with their own two eyes and being told that it is not happening. While gaming in general has always skewed male, God of War in particular has always leaned hard in that direction, and that is not to say that women do not enjoy the series as well, but it is not hard to understand that many fans would of course rather play as Kratos in a God of War game than his dead wife. It's kind of like a bully on the playground who has been smacking you around every day for years, and you've just been taking it because that's how it's gone for as long as you can remember, until one day you catch his hand and you tell him to stop hitting you, and he looks at you like you are the one that has the problem. We are not the bullies for asking the smacking to finally stop. And all of the pushback lately in general, not just Laufey or the ongoing female character debate, but Mixtape, Stop Killing Games, players voting with their wallets, tired of paying more for getting less, voicing what they think. The sheer venom that pushback always gets from journalists, the internet, or just people in the industry is exactly how you know that it's landing. They would not get this rattled if the pushback was not doing something. A AAA gaming studio would not be firing back at a pizza company's goofy tweet. And unless these companies can fully support themselves on this modern audience that they are constantly seeking, until they remember what and who they are building for, this will just keep happening over and over again. All right, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for being here. I know this one was a little bit more critical, but I don't want the takeaway to be from this week that I am bitter. There were genuinely so many exciting things announced, and it just reminded me that I love games. I want more than anything for this industry to course correct and improve, and there are so many devs and studios out there who are working tirelessly to make this happen, and we have gotten some really great games over the past few years with lots more to come soon. Like I talked about a couple of videos ago, I think ultimately it all comes down to trust. The studios that trust and respect their core audience and build for them are the ones that earn our trust back, and the more of them that we get, the faster this whole thing turns around. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, so